Hi everyone, my name is Dion Schuddeboom. This year, Apple released the brand new iPhone 13, and with that, they also reduced the price of the iPhone 11, which now starts at $499, $300 less than the iPhone 13. My aim with this video is to compare the iPhone 11 and the iPhone 13 in terms of price, design, display, camera, battery, and performance, to help you decide whether it is worth upgrading from the iPhone 11 to the iPhone 13, or to see if it's worth upgrading to the now more affordable iPhone 11 from an older model iPhone, such as the iPhone 10, 8, 7, or 6S. Okay, so to start, let me go over the different buying options for both models, starting with the iPhone 11. Now, the iPhone 11, as mentioned, starts at $499 and comes in two size options, a 64GB model as well as a 128GB model. Additionally, you can buy it from Apple in 6 colors, including the black model, which I have here. Compared to that, the iPhone 13 starts at $799 and comes in 3 storage sizes. We have 128GB, 256, and 512GB. Personally, I have the 256GB model here. The iPhone 13 also comes in 5 colors, including my favorite, Midnight. Let's take a look at the design of each phone. Starting with the iPhone 11, you can see it has that very familiar, classic, rounded design with those rounded corners, which we've come to see for many years. The phone has glass on the back as well as on the front, and has an aluminum frame that goes all the way around. Now, for some people, the more rounded design is actually more comfortable to hold. Though do bear in mind, compared to the iPhone 13, in terms of dimensions, the iPhone 11 is actually a little bit bigger. Looking at the iPhone 13, it has the same glass and aluminum design found on the iPhone 11, with a glass layer on the back as well as on the front. However, unlike the iPhone 11, the iPhone 13 features what is called Apple's ceramic shield, and this is supposed to make the front glass of the phone up to 4 times more shatter resistant. However, the biggest design difference between the two models is that more squared off, cornered off design that we see on the iPhone 13. This is a much more modern and sharper design that is also more in line with Apple's current design language, looking at their iPads as well as their new Macs. Personally, I've always preferred this more industrial design. Now, while the sharper corners may not be as comfortable to hold as the rounded corners seen on the iPhone 11, this design does allow the phone to be a little bit smaller, and that in turn makes it easier to grip and reach around the screen, especially if you're using it in one hand. Speaking of the display, this is an area where the two phones differ very significantly. The iPhone 11 has a 6.1-inch liquid Retina LCD display, with 326 pixels per inch and 625 nits of brightness. While not as impressive as the display on the iPhone 13, it still looks good. Text is clear, colors are vibrant, and the screen is bright enough in most use cases. Where the iPhone 11's display is good, the iPhone 13's display is truly excellent. The iPhone 13 features a 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display, with 460 pixels per inch and 800 nits of brightness. Having this higher pixel count means that the finer details in text and your images are even easier to see and more clear on the iPhone 13. Not to mention that the screen is also brighter, getting plenty bright for all conditions, even in direct sunlight. The display uses OLED technology, and this allows for far better contrast between the lighter parts and the darker parts of the screen. Colors are vibrant and also really bring content to life. And finally, having that OLED display allows for the bezels around the screen to be quite a bit smaller. Something that on its own in day-to-day use you won't notice too much and eventually get used to. But having the two side by side, the difference becomes very clear. The notch too is smaller on the iPhone 13. Now combine this with the thinner bezels on the display, make the design of the iPhone 13 look and feel more modern. Okay, let's talk about the cameras. Now, both the iPhone 11 as well as the iPhone 13 have a very strong set of cameras. Both have dual 12 megapixel cameras. The 11 has a wide f1.8 lens and a ultra-wide f2.4 lens, whereas the iPhone 13 has an f1.6 wide lens and a f2.4 ultra-wide lens. Now, the larger aperture on the wide lens will let in more light. In addition to this, the iPhone 13 brings along some new camera features, including photographic styles. Now, photographic styles is kind of like changing your picture profile on a DSLR. This allows you to change the way your phone captures and interprets the scene. Great if you're going for a consistent look in terms of colors across all of your photos. You also get cinematic mode. Now, cinematic mode is essentially portrait mode but for video, allowing you to keep your foreground in focus and adding that extra blur and depth of field to your background live as you're filming. What I like most about cinematic mode is that it will automatically adjust the focus based on the positions of faces in the frame. Additionally, you can do a lot more after taking the video. For example, you can change the amount of blur, in other words, changing how much of that depth of field you want in your footage. And you can also change where exactly the video is focused after shooting it. This way your focus will always be correct. All in all, I think these camera features are genuinely useful, especially if you shoot a lot of photo and video right on your phone. And these are features that you will not find on the iPhone 11. So I've done some photo and video comparisons between the iPhone 11 and iPhone 13. Let's take a look at the results. In general, I would say that photos on the iPhone 13 look a bit more natural in terms of color reproduction as well as white balance. Comparing the ultra-wide lenses, I found this to be sharper on the iPhone 13, particularly when you look at the corners of a photo. Now, this example stood out to me in particular. Looking at this close-up photo side by side, you can see that the wider aperture on the iPhone 13 does show and create more of that natural shallow depth of field effect, looking more akin to what you'd find on a professional DSLR. And then comparing a few low-light examples, you can see that the iPhone 13 keeps colors more natural and photos have slightly less grain, again in part thanks to that wider aperture. In terms of video, I found that the 13 has slightly more dynamic range and autofocus is a bit more reliable and fast, but the differences here are relatively small. Now, let's talk about the front cameras. Both the 11 and 13 have 12 megapixel f2.2 cameras on the front. The main visual difference here between the front-facing cameras is that the 13 has more dynamic range, showing greater difference between the brighter and darker parts of the frame. At the end of the day, the cameras on both phones are truly excellent, and it genuinely amazes me to see how far smartphone cameras have come in the past years. Now, unless you are regularly shooting video and photo as a content creator or professional who does this on their phone, the relatively small upgrades in the cameras on the iPhone 13, in my opinion, on their own, won't be enough reason to upgrade, as the iPhone 11's cameras still perform very well. Now, one of the most important parts of any phone to me is the battery life. But before we talk about battery, I want to thank today's sponsor, Lemorel. This is their new 5-in-1 USB-C hub. Using just one USB port gives you an extra 2 USB 3.0 ports for all your peripherals, a full HDMI port to output to a 4K TV or a display, as well as gigabit Ethernet for reliable internet connection, and finally a USB-C port that allows for 100-watt pass-through charging, all in a sleek and durable aluminum design that is easy to take with you on the go. This USB-C hub supports Windows, macOS, Android, iOS, and Linux. All hubs also come with a 12-month warranty. To learn more, be sure to click the link in the description. Thanks again to Lemorel. Back to battery life. According to Apple, the iPhone 11 should get around 17 hours of video playback. Now, it has a lower brightness and more power efficient LCD display, which also helps. In my experience, I get anywhere from 5 to 7 hours of screen on time, which is above average. On the other hand, the iPhone 13 should get 19 hours of video playback, and this is largely helped by its more power efficient A15 processor. Now, in my experience, I found myself getting anywhere from 6.5 all the way up to 8.5 hours of screen on time, putting it well above average. All the numbers aside, what is most important is that the battery life on both iPhones should be enough to get you through a whole day. Additionally, both models also support wireless charging, though if you want MagSafe, you will only find this on the iPhone 13. Let's talk about performance. Now, iPhones have gained a reputation of remaining fast many years after their release. And based on my experience, both with the iPhone 11 as well as the 13, I am confident that these phones will be no exception. The iPhone 11 is powered by Apple's A13 chip, whereas the iPhone 13 has Apple's new A15 Bionic chip. Now, during day-to-day productivity, from mail, messaging, taking and making calls, watching YouTube videos, camera, etc., the performance of both models is actually very similar. Both are incredibly fast and keep up, never stuttering or lagging. When it comes to more graphic-intense games, these also run smooth both on the 13 and also on the iPhone 11. The only difference here is that they will load slightly faster on the 13. In my testing, there are two places where the difference in performance shows, and the first is when doing graphic intense tasks. For example, editing a large number of raw photos in Lightroom. In addition to this, I also found that apps will remain open in the background for longer on the iPhone 13. But really, today in 2021, the difference in speed is relatively minor. Where the difference in performance will start to show is in the years to come, as both phones age. The iPhone 13 with its newer A15 Bionic chip will receive software updates and support for longer. I would expect to get another 5 to 6 more years. And this is around 2 to 3 more years than I would expect out of the iPhone 11. And this brings me back to the questions from the start of the video. First, is it worth upgrading from the iPhone 11 to the iPhone 13, or is it worth upgrading to the now more affordable iPhone 11 from an older model iPhone? First, the iPhone 13 brings some great new features and design. If you want the latest and greatest, the iPhone 13 will not disappoint. But in my opinion, if you already have the iPhone 11, the iPhone 13 is not a necessary upgrade. Unless you really want that OLED display and sharper, cornered-off design, my advice would be to wait for the iPhone 14. And second, now that the iPhone 11 is more affordable, you do get a lot of iPhone for your money, making it a good value option. In fact, looking at the current iPhone lineup, I would consider the iPhone 11 to be in kind of a sweet spot, being both more affordable while still lasting for many years to come. If you're using an iPhone 10, 8, 7, 6S, or any older phone, or simply are looking for an iPhone to buy new without breaking the bank, then the iPhone 11 is a great value option. Though if you do get this phone, my advice would be to definitely spend just a little bit more and go up to the 128GB model. Trust me, you won't regret it. Alright, so hopefully that will help you out with your buying decision if you're choosing between the iPhone 11 and the iPhone 13. And I hope this video also gives some perspective on what the difference is between these two models, showing that phones do not need to be necessarily upgraded every year, and in fact can last many years. If you really want, and with a battery replacement, you can stretch the lifespan of one of these more recent iPhones up to 4, 5, possibly even 6 years. But the point is that if you're looking to buy a new phone and want to save a couple $100, sometimes, and I think in this case, buying a slightly older model will give you a very similar experience. If of course you want the latest and greatest, then well, the iPhone 13 in this case will absolutely deliver as well. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like down below and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching and take care.